Today, I want to share with you a valuable psychology book titled Don't Please Anyone. In life, there's a very common personality type, the people pleaser. Those with this personality often fear rejection, fear displeasing others, even when they have their own thoughts and needs. They are so hard on themselves that they forget their true feelings. On the surface, it seems like care and consideration for others, but deep down, it's self-rejection. Psychologist Karen Horney once said, "Not being able to be oneself is the root of all despair." The habit of pleasing others will trap us in an internal conflict, moving further and further away from our true nature. So, how do you know if you're caught in this spiral, and how can you break free? This book offers a comprehensive look at 8 typical behavioral patterns of the people-pleasing personality. It analyzes the underlying causes and provides practical, feasible methods for change. This is a self-healing psychological therapy that helps you recognize your behaviors and the invisible fears within, thereby strengthening your inner self. When you learn to love yourself more, you'll find life more free and comfortable, just as the Buddha taught. Before loving others, know how to love yourself. Now, let's dive into today's content. Diagnosing whether you have a people-pleasing personality. Before embarking on any psychological therapy, it's essential to diagnose whether you possess a people-pleasing personality. The author outlines 26 behaviors. If you exhibit fewer than 8 of these behaviors, you are likely not a people pleaser, or only at a very low level. If you show 9 to 17 behaviors, you are a long-term people pleaser. If you display 18 to 26 behaviors, you are in the extremely high people-pleasing category. So, what are these 26 behaviors? 1. Not daring to refuse others, fearing they will get angry if you do. 2. Fearing others' unhappiness, feeling uncomfortable yourself if they are upset. 3. Constantly worrying that relationships will break if you don't agree with the other person. 4. Striving every day to meet the needs of many people, feeling tired and helpless. 5. Always agreeing with others, not daring to express your true thoughts. 6. Having a gentle nature, lacking a distinct personality. 7. Adhering to rules, being obedient, never daring to challenge. 8. Having many friends but not feeling their genuine affection. 9. Not daring to make requests, fearing rejection. 10. Feeling flustered or even guilty when someone treats you well. 11. Having deep inferiority complexes, not daring to act. 12. Feeling inadequate if not acknowledged by others. 13. Fearing isolation, wanting everyone to see you as a good person. 14. Lacking clear boundaries, always taking on too much responsibility for others' lives and emotions. 15. Needing others' approval for anything you do to feel at ease. 16. Using excessively high moral standards to pressure yourself. 17. Fearing competition, unwilling to make decisions. 18. Always trying to keep a smile on your face in front of others. 19. Never getting angry, never speaking up even when attacked by others. 20. Not competing, always playing the role of the weaker party. 21. Frequently feeling insecure. 22. Suppressing emotions, not daring to express them. 23. Believing that human nature should not have a dark side. 24. Always sacrificing yourself for others, then telling yourself it's the virtue of dedication. 25. Frequently complaining about yourself, believing you're not good enough. 26. Full of internal conflicts, unsure how to choose to please both yourself and others. These are the 26 points to help you identify if you are a people pleaser. Self-awareness will always be the most beautiful starting point for living authentically. By looking deeper into your inner self, you'll realize many unconscious behaviors are, in fact, constraints of a people-pleasing personality. In the daily grind, people with this personality often unconsciously repeat familiar behaviors that they themselves rarely recognize. Next, I will share the 8 most typical behavioral patterns. 8 typical behaviors of a people-pleasing personality. Behavior 1. Feeling uneasy when refusing others. The book describes a case like this. Towards the end of the year, a female employee was swamped with work. Just then, a colleague and close friend approached her for help with an urgent task assigned by their boss. Hearing her friend's plea, the employee immediately found herself in a dilemma, her heart filled with anxiety and turmoil. On one hand, her own work was piling up. On the other, she feared that refusing her friend would harm their relationship. This is a classic manifestation of a people pleaser, feeling uneasy when refusing others. So, what's the psychology behind this behavior? The answer is fragility. People who don't dare to refuse others often feel that everything is fragile. Others are very fragile. If they refuse, others will be sad or angry. They themselves are also very fragile. If they refuse and others get angry, they will feel worried and anxious. And the relationship is also fragile. If they refuse, the bond between them will break. This sense of fragility arises because people pleasers often revert to a childlike state. As children, we are completely dependent on our parents. If parents are gentle and loving, the child develops healthily. But if parents are quick-tempered or yell, facing the image of tall, authoritative parents, the child becomes fearful, feeling weak and incredibly small. This psychological shadow can persist into adulthood. So, when refusing others, they often easily regress to a childlike state, failing to recognize themselves as adults and instead acting like a trembling child before authoritative parents. The consequence of this is exhaustion from striving to meet others' needs and denying their own true desires. Ultimately, nothing is completed satisfactorily, and they become even more frustrated. So, what's the way to change this behavior? Because they are fragile, these individuals need to cultivate a strong inner self. This is the core solution. A solid inner self begins by daring to say goodbye to the past. We are no longer the helpless children of yesteryear. Courageously face and embrace the inner child within you, the child who still trembles, still fears abandonment. This is also where the root of your fragility lies. When you no longer deny that fragility, you can establish boundaries for yourself, allowing you to refuse with a calm and steadfast inner peace. So, how do we refuse others? To refuse without feeling uneasy, first, you need to clearly define what you truly want and what your values are. Once clear, make a decisive choice and take responsibility for that decision. You will no longer be torn by the conflict of accepting or declining. And importantly, once you refuse without making excuses. People pleasers will find all sorts of reasons to justify their refusal. For example, if I refuse, they'll surely be sad, but the more reasons you find, the more you lose confidence. Therefore, be frank and honest in expressing your difficulties or thoughts to the other person. I'm sorry, I cannot help you with this. I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. A strong, mature person is not someone who nods to everything, but someone who can both refuse and help, who knows how to love others while also loving themselves. Behavior 2, the instinct to unconditionally agree and conform to others. I remember once a new friend stayed with me for a few days. When I asked if she wanted to eat an apple, she said yes. I peeled 2 plates, but when I returned, her plate was untouched. At that moment, I truly didn't understand why she couldn't just say she didn't want an apple. Why did she have to agree with me? In reality, that is a typical behavior of a people-pleasing personality, conforming and agreeing with others. The psychology behind this behavior is self-suppression. Any suppression causes significant harm. The instinct of life is to reach out, like a seed rooting, sprouting, and striving towards the light. Suppressing oneself is like placing a huge stone on that seed. Over time, both body and personality change. People accustomed to living in suppression won't dare to express their individuality, even losing the ability to express emotions, only knowing how to conform to please others. You'll notice many people who suppress their emotions often have their eyebrows furrowed, with a deep vertical wrinkle between them. The underlying causes of this behavior stem from 2 aspects. The first is that they believe having their own opinions is dangerous, because when they express differing views, they feel ashamed for being unlike others or fear bearing responsibility if that opinion leads to undesirable outcomes. The most typical example is the fear of conflict when opinions clash. But in truth, conflict is a natural part of life, like day and night, yin and yang. The important thing is not to avoid conflict, but to find self-worth within that very conflict. The second reason is that they don't accept themselves. The book tells of a girl who clearly enjoyed quiet but always agreed to attend lively parties with friends. She did this because she thought being introverted was bad, inferior, and indicated poor social skills. So she tried to create an image of being lively and outgoing in front of others, but that wasn't her true nature. So, what are the consequences of this behavior? You will never have a truly loving and heartfelt relationship, no matter how much you try to conform to others. Because conformity only creates a calm exterior, but inside, there's an emptiness that is never filled. Many people spend their entire lives doing things they dislike, just to please their parents or others. This prolonged conformity makes us lose genuine happiness. So, how can you free yourself from this state? The core method is to learn to recognize and accept your true self. Try meditation, observing your breath and body sensations to connect with your authentic self. If you define yourself by your house, car, money, position, or reputation, that self is extremely fragile and easily shaken. But if you recognize yourself through genuine emotions, through your body, through life experiences, you will feel more grounded. When you find yourself, you'll realize that no personality trait is absolutely good or absolutely bad. Even introversion, even liking solitude, even if you decide to pursue a job that doesn't meet others' expectations, all can become your strengths, as long as you embrace them as a natural part of who you are. Another way to cope in daily life is to learn to say no gently and also learn to express emotions rather than letting them explode. Living true to our emotions doesn't mean we can say whatever we want or that we should be blunt and harsh with others. For example, some people only eat fruit they've peeled themselves. If they say directly, "I'm afraid it's dirty, I won't eat it," the other person might feel invalidated. But agreeing and then leaving it uneaten creates even more awkwardness. The best approach is honest but respectful. You can say, "I have a bit of a peculiar habit of only eating fruit I've peeled myself. Please don't take it personally." This way, you maintain your boundaries while still preserving your connection with others. Behavior 3, not daring to ask anyone for help. Here's another typical behavior of a people pleaser, not daring to ask anyone for help. The book describes a case. One night, a girl felt unwell and wanted to ask her roommate to buy some medicine. But then she thought, "It's late, my roommate must be asleep. I'll just bear it." So she endured until the next morning, only to find her body temperature had spiked to 40°C, requiring hospitalization. At this point, she thought of calling her mother but then decided, "Mom is so far away and has to care for my frail grandmother. I'll just endure it." So she continued to suffer in silence. This is a classic example of someone who doesn't dare to ask for help. The psychology behind this action reveals two opposing states within, both low self-esteem and self-love narcissism *. Self-love manifests as feeling like the whole world should revolve around oneself. Like the girl in the example, the reason she didn't dare to ask for help was the thought that if she asked and was refused, her self-esteem would be hurt. Low self-esteem is the feeling of, "I don't deserve it." Not deserving help, not deserving love, not deserving praise. This often has roots in childhood. For example, a child scores 9 points on a test, happily tells their parents, but the parents say, "One test doesn't mean anything. What matters is getting into university." As adults, this can develop into an inferiority complex. Therefore, for those who are both self-deprecating and narcissistic, they will appear strong on the outside but are deeply riddled with complexes on the inside. The consequence is that people with this psychology often find it increasingly difficult to experience love. The author offers an interesting definition of love. Love is mutual inconvenience. He cooks you a warm meal. You gently care for him when he's sick. Love is when parents raise us as children and we care for them in old age. Love is when I confide in you today and tomorrow you lean on my shoulder. Love, ultimately, is the support and assistance between souls. If you never dare to open your mouth to ask for help and don't let anyone assist you, your life will miss many opportunities to be loved. So, how do you free yourself from this situation? The solution is to resolve internal conflict ***. Step out of emotional stalemates. The best way to break free is to enter a state of union, a union between your narcissistic self, your self-deprecating self, and your true self. The easiest technique to apply is to stop all streams of thought. Self-judgment always stems from thoughts. But surprisingly, we have a powerful ability. When we focus on our breath, all streams of thought pause. Breath is like an anchor that keeps the mind from being agitated. When consciousness returns to the rhythm of breath, we also clearly feel the life within us. That is also when we unite more closely with our true essence. Then, from the level of awareness, move to concrete action. Be bold and ask others for help when you truly need support. If someone declines, don't fear it. Instead, understand that the person is an organic being, and their refusal is just a sound from an organ in their body. They have their own reasons for refusing. Release this fear of rejection. It no longer needs to be a heavy, haunting presence. At the same time, recognize the beautiful need hidden beneath self-deprecation and narcissism. You fear you're not worthy of love and care. In reality, that only stems from the desire to be loved. When you deeply understand yourself, you can easily enter a state of union with yourself, living more lightly and freely. Behavior 4, eagerly helping without being asked. Conversely to not daring to ask for help, there's another behavior, eagerly helping before anyone even asks. Many people enjoy helping others, but when someone ignores them or doesn't say thank you, they feel hurt. This is a manifestation of a people-pleasing personality, and the psychology behind this behavior is the asterisk desire for recognition asterisk. On the surface, it seems like unconditional help, but deep down, there's still a hope for affirmation from others. The causes of this behavior can stem from a fear of isolation and also from incorrect upbringing in childhood. For many, the only way to earn parental praise was to do what their parents wanted. When all praise comes from following others' wishes, children can easily grow up to be people pleasers. Another reason is a failure to establish boundaries between oneself and others, leading to an inclination to interfere in others' affairs. The consequence is that the more you help, the more depleted and exhausted you feel. There's a saying, one who gives too much creates one who relies too much. If help is offered with the intention of pleasing others to gain something, often those who approach you are those who wish to rely on and exploit you. Moreover, the tragedy is that the more you help, the harder it is to receive gratitude. Because when you adopt the mindset of, I am a good person, I am helping you, you are unconsciously placing yourself in a higher position and the other person in a lower one. The human ego is inherently sensitive. They perceive the position you assign them and dislike being in a lesser position. Therefore, they often choose to respond by not being grateful. So, how do you break free from this situation? The best way is to clearly define boundaries by understanding your own life lessons. Psychologists suggest that our purpose in life is to deal with our own life lessons, which include all areas of life such as learning, work, lifestyle, communication, and so on. The less you interfere with others' life lessons, the better. For example, many parents excessively interfere in their children's choice of life partners. This is actually intruding on their children's lessons. The result is not necessarily happiness for the children, and the relationship with them becomes increasingly damaged. Another useful method is to write down who the subject of an action is. For example, Liam wants to buy rice. Hannah wants to finish the report. Looking at these, you'll know these are things related to others' life lessons. Remember a key principle: don't always proactively do things for others that they can do themselves. When you shed the role of the good person, try to reduce your enthusiasm, even learn to refuse, you'll find that relationships don't break as easily as you imagine. Finally, a simple way is to stand in front of the mirror every morning and say, I am good enough, I am good enough. It might sound naive, but it's a way to instill positive self-suggestion. Gradually, you'll find that you no longer need to prove you're a good person, and certainly don't need to help others just to gain recognition. Additionally, you can practice self-appreciation by praising things directly related to you. For example, today I was great. I learned something new. Today I exercised so well. Absolutely do not praise yourself for helping others, only praise what belongs to you. These are the affirmations that increase inner strength and self-worth. Behavior 5. Always doing what others expect. Next is another typical behavior of people pleasers, always doing what others expect. This behavior often occurs in family relationships, intimate relationships, or close collaborative relationships. For instance, some children study the major their parents choose, or work the job their parents prefer. Or some people constantly try to become the ideal partner according to the model their significant other desires. Such individuals often act without considering whether they like it or not. As long as it's what others expect, they will do it. They pursue others' approval and do everything to be accepted. The main reasons stem from a fear of risk, avoidance of responsibility, and an obsession with recognition. When acting according to others' wishes, they feel secure because there's an implicit guarantee. If the outcome isn't good, the fault isn't entirely theirs. Partly, it's due to the other person, because I followed your advice. But in reality, this is a way of avoiding responsibility and risk, reflecting a lack of maturity in personality. Moreover, it's due to an excessively strong obsession with recognition. People with this behavior often think that if they aren't recognized, it means they haven't done well enough. From there, they demand more and more from themselves. So, what are the consequences here? These types of people will lose themselves and distance themselves from success. Because someone who does something not out of passion, but only to please others and gain recognition, will find it very difficult to achieve anything significant. This is a very vicious cycle. The more they want recognition, the more they lose themselves. The more they lose themselves, the harder it is to gain true recognition. So, what's the way to free oneself from these psychological chains? It's to change your perspective so you know that true recognition comes from within, not from external sources. When you truly love a job, you won't find it arduous. Instead, you'll have endless motivation to move forward. This is what helps you shine in the work you choose. At that point, you'll realize that you don't need to seek external recognition because your authenticity and wholeheartedness naturally attract respect. And if someone does acknowledge you, it's just an inevitable consequence, no longer a goal you have to chase. Most importantly, you will have found true freedom in your heart, the deepest and most enduring recognition from yourself. Behavior 6. Proactively spreading goodwill with a smile or not daring to get angry. Next is another typical behavior of a people-pleasing personality: proactively spreading goodwill with a smile or not daring to get angry. A smile expresses goodwill, which is normal. However, if you immediately smile and chat with someone even when you're not feeling well, that becomes a problem. Because this behavior indicates a constant lack of a sense of security. Some studies have found that among primates, when a low-ranking individual is threatened or attacked, it will smile. The intention is to convey, "I am submissive, I am harmless, please don't attack me." From an evolutionary perspective, humans are similar. Behind a proactive, people-pleasing smile is a plea: "Please don't hate me, don't shun me, don't harm me," all to achieve a peaceful environment. But does doing so truly achieve safety? When people feel dependent on others, they naturally live in constant worry and insecurity. Clearly, placing your safety on someone else's shoulders is a very unreliable thing. At the same time, the habit of proactively smiling to gain safety causes many people, when facing attack from others, to also respond with a smile to gloss over it. But if resistance and anger are suppressed, that energy doesn't disappear. If it doesn't go outwards, it will inevitably turn inwards. Therefore, learn to build a sense of security for yourself. But this doesn't mean encouraging you to attack or retaliate against others with anger and hatred. Rather, it's best to stop smiling when you're unhappy, not force yourself, allow yourself to be silent when needed, and learn to express your anger appropriately. Instead of bursting into rage, you can leave when you feel disrespected. That's not losing or being impolite, but rather setting boundaries for yourself and focusing on your own well-being. Behavior subpoint related to anger: never getting angry. Then there's another behavior: never getting angry. People who never get angry often tie themselves down with the belief that highly moral people never get angry. This behavior also stems from parental guidance when children are young. For example, a child cries because they were bullied, but their parents just say, "What are you crying for? Can't you see your parents are busy?" Gradually, the child will no longer dare to express their anger. Over time, these angry emotions become vague in their consciousness. When emotions are suppressed, they don't disappear but become a burden on the body, transforming into tangible matter like tumors appearing in emotion-sensitive organs such as the thyroid or breasts. Therefore, timely care and release of emotions are incredibly important for health. Exploding to the point of irrationality or trying to suppress it are both signs that you are resisting it. And the more you resist, the more energy you give it. Instead, accept it. When that emotion arises, stop, sit still, and observe. Just the mere awareness of anger in that moment is already healing for yourself. Behavior 8, constantly blaming oneself. Finally, we come to the last point. The 8th typical behavior of a people-pleasing personality is constantly blaming oneself. Some people, if a task yields a poor result, regardless of whether it's their responsibility or not, will always self-critique and judge themselves, thinking, "I didn't do well enough, it's my fault." At first glance, this might seem like courage, taking responsibility, but deep down, it hides a mentality of harsh self-blame. Imagine that every person standing under the sun has a bright side and a shadowed side. That is a complete human being. But those who blame themselves too much always want to eliminate that shadow, only wishing to retain the bright side. Because of this, they often set extremely strict standards to pursue nobility and perfect outcomes. There's a saying, "In life, the person who causes you the most suffering is not anyone else, but yourself." Excessive harshness and the pursuit of perfection not only reduce the effectiveness of all work, but also harm oneself. Therefore, stop self-judgment and learn to love yourself. The author states that self-blame is sometimes just a way to avoid criticism from others, or because we have overly accepted society's judgmental value system. Thus, we become excessively strict, not allowing ourselves to have a shadow, not even accepting the existence of darkness in this world. When they see darkness in others, they immediately label them bad or incompetent. But life is not absolutely black or white. Therefore, accept your shadow, accept your imperfections. At the same time, let's learn to be grateful. Even if today's results are not as expected, look at what you did accomplish. Even if it's just a little, be grateful for it. Gratitude will lead you to a complete and fulfilling self. In that lighthearted state, you will no longer excessively crave, no longer seek recognition from the outside, no longer force yourself to meet your own harsh demands. On the contrary, that very sense of completeness will help you perform well, and happiness will naturally blossom from within. The Comprehensive Self-Help Psychological Therapy, S.E.L.F. These are the 8 typical behaviors of a people-pleasing personality. At the end of the book, the author introduces a comprehensive method called S.E.L.F. Psychological Therapy. S.E.L.F. stands for the self, reminding us that the path to liberation from all pain ultimately lies within ourselves. In reality, the psychological analysis, identification of causes, and solutions for each behavior mentioned above are specific applications of the S.E.L.F. therapy. However, sometimes you might still feel confused about what to do. Therefore, you need a larger map to navigate the labyrinth of emotions. The 8 steps of S.E.L.F. therapy serve as a compass for your own healing. The 8 steps are as follows. Step 1, self-observation. When emotions arise, pause. The best way is to calm your mind through meditation, observe your inner self, and reflect on that emotion. Step 2, accept emotions. The most important principle for freeing yourself from a people-pleasing personality is not to suppress or resist emotions. If you feel anger, guilt, anxiety, or any other emotion, accept its presence and allow it to exist. When truly accepted, emotions will naturally dissipate, making way for balance and peace. Step 3, connect with resources. In moments of weakness, don't hesitate to seek help from trusted individuals, good books, or psychological professionals. After accepting your emotions and receiving external support, you will recognize your false beliefs and inner fears. Step 4, transform beliefs. For example, when you think, "If I refuse, people will abandon me," question whether the belief behind that thought is logical. Can a relationship truly be stable if it's only based on you always catering to others' wishes? Honesty and clear boundaries are what make relationships healthy. The fear of abandonment is merely a reflection of an old belief that needs to be replaced with a new one. You deserve respect and love, even when you don't please others. Step 5, enhance skills. Once your beliefs have transformed, you need to solidify this by enhancing your skills. This is about learning to set boundaries, cultivating physical and mental health. Eating healthy, reading books, listening to and sharing insights from reliable sources, these are the best practices to improve yourself every day. Step 6, accumulate experience. Beliefs truly transform into strength only when you put them into practice in real life. Gradually, you'll realize that saying, "no," which seemed like it would make you disliked, actually brings respect, genuine love, and happiness. Step 7. Love yourself. From there, you enter the state of loving yourself. You learn to cherish your emotions, care for both your body and mind, and understand your own worth. Step 8. Abide in inner peace. From that love, you can dwell in a state of body-mind tranquility. A peaceful state, living authentically, freely, radiating positive energy, and serenely embracing life as it is. As the wise Rumi once said, you have wandered through thousands of worlds only to find your own self. Finally, I wish you peace and happiness, and the courage to always be yourself on every path.